Master, posing as a rural vicar, summons a cloven-hoofed demon-like creature named Azal in a church crypt. Seeking to gain the ancient titan's demonic power, he gathers a cult and then corrupts or controls the residents of Devil's End to bow to his will. Dark elemental forces begin to disturb the village on the eve of May Day. Unexplained murders, a stoned gargoyle come to life, and a nigh impenetrable infernal energy dome. With the Master fully prepared to destroy the Earth, the Doctor and unit, aided by a benevolent practitioner of witchcraft, battle the wicked rites of a secret science wielded by an alien from another world. Welcome, friends and companions. How are you today? I'm doing great. So, sci-fi fantasy fans and all sort of fans meet on this channel for fun chats about their beloved books, movies, series, and franchises. We also talk about food and drinks, music, and sport, and a special place on this channel for Doctor Who, my most beloved sci-fi serial. Watch till eternity. Yes, yes, yes. This channel has multiple names because it regenerates regularly. Most of the time it's called Random Entertainment Channel. And random because we'll discuss everything that involves entertainment, including movies and series, books and music. We don't do politics and religion. These are not entertainment. So we dive not deep into these subjects. Random because we will broadcast on non-fixed times, actually many different times. And the reason because is I want to meet as much people as possible because of the different time zones in this world. Yes, that's the reason I do the live streams on different times. Make friends in different countries and time zones. Yes, actually that is the case. So you need to subscribe to this channel to know what time the broadcast is. And it is a random also because we have no guests or different guests. Will you be my guest? It depends on it depends on what you show me in the live stream or panel. If you want to join me in the live stream, feel free to contact me via Discord or YouTube. And we will look what is possible. You can put a comment on one of the videos, and you can visit me, meet me on Discord server Random Entertainment Channel. Tag Doctor Who on Discord. You find me very quick because I bump the server regularly. So be my guest, and it is also possible to invite me for your channel or live stream or panel. I'm available for that also. I want to make friends and I want to talk about things we are interested in. So cheers, man, and have lots of fun. Your host, Enigmatic Joker. Haha, yes, that's me, that's me. So today, a third Doctor story. Yes, yes, yes. My favorite classic Doctor, John Pertwee. And this story is called The Dæmons. Four-part story of each 25 minutes of fifth part actually. Yes, fifth parts of each 25 minutes. So we don't dive further in this story. Here's first some general info about this story. Okay, here's first on. There we go. The Dæmons was the fifth and final serial of season 8 of Doctor Who. It concluded a series-long succession of stories featuring the Master, ending with his incarceration. However, the character continued to appear on occasional basis during season 9 and season 10. As of 2024, this was the last ever 5-part Doctor Who television story, following only the Dominators and the Mind Robber from season 6. Okay. Season 6 is, by the way, with Patrick Troughton, of course. We dive now into the plot. So, I was already saying 5 episodes. We start with episode 1. So, during a stormy night in a sleepy village, a man leaves a pub with his dog. His dog runs away into a graveyard where he sees something that causes him to fall to the ground, dead. Early the next morning, Miss Olive Hawthorne tries to convince the village GP, Dr. Reeves, that the man died of fright, but Reeves is having none of it, saying it was simple heart attack. Hawthorne says she crossed the rooms this morning and knew that something bad was going to happen. As Reeves drives off, she implores him not to open the barrow. Outside a large hill, a TV crew is setting up a live broadcast fronted by Alistair Fergus, where Professor Gilbert Horner is going to open the barrow. In a unit garage, Joe talks to the doctor about the occult whilst he tampers with Bessie. The doctor is exasperated, saying that anything that seems magic or occult can be explained by science. As he talks to her, Joe is surprised to see Bessie seemingly drive off around the yard by itself and even honk in communication with the doctor. Mike Yates emerges and says that it must be magic, but the doctor shows a remote control he had in his pocket. Yates has come to pick Joe up. So they can watch the broadcast of the opening of the barrow together. When Yates mentions it is in a village called Dale's End, the name sparks curiosity in the doctor's mind, and he agrees to watch the program with them. In a piece to camera, Fergus talks about the cavern under the church, which is shrouded in stories of curses, pagans, and witches, and led to the barrow's name, the Devil's Hump. Yates, Benton, the doctor, and Joe watch. Warner begins to show the camera the side of the excavation. He explains that he believes there to be Anglo-Saxon treasure on the other side and that the viewers will find out at midnight. When questioned as to why midnight, Horner explains that midnight is the start of the occult festival of Beltane. When further pushed, he explains it is a publicity stunt to advertise his new book, which is coming out tomorrow. The doctor is very concerned and thinks there must be a link to all this. Outside the site of the excavation, Horner is confronted on air by Hawthorne. She says that they are dealing with forces they don't understand and that they will bring about death and disaster. When asked how she knows this, she says it is because she's a witch. Both Horner and Fergus laugh and dismiss her message. As they move off, she warns that the devil is coming. The doctor heads off. When asked where he is going, he says he is going to Devil's End as he believes that Hawthorne is right. Fergus signs off his live broadcast. In the pub, Bert, the landlord, Tom Gearden, and Reeves are scornful of Hawthorne. The village squire, Vin Stanley, does speak up and say that there have been some very odd occurrences since the barrow started to be excavated. He cites that the weather has been extreme and that the cows have dried up. They all laugh him off. The village constable, Rome, congratulates Hawthorne on her TV appearance. As she walks off, a huge gust of wind stops her in her tracks. She begins to chant a spell. Unseen behind her, the policeman in a trance picks up a large rock and goes to strike her. The spell seems to stop the wind and the policeman comes to, not understanding why he has a rock in his hand. The doctor and Joe approach Devil's End, but a gust of wind turns a signpost up ahead and sends them in the wrong direction. Hawthorne goes to the church and encounters Garvin, the verger, in the cemetery. She says she wishes to see the vicar, but Garvin says that Mr. Messenger is busy. Hawthorne says she wishes to see the old vicar, Canon Smallwood, but Garvin says that he was taken ill and had to retire. Hawthorne does not believe that, as Smallwood left overnight. without saying goodbye to anyone and says she will see the new vicar, but Garvin will not let her pass. There is an argument that is stopped by the new vicar, who is revealed to be the master. The brigadier is heading out to a function, leaving Yates and Benton stuck at the base. Hawthorne asks for Messenger's help. He tries to placate her and says she was nothing to be worried about. When this fails, he tries to hypnotize her, but to no avail. When she leaves, the master sends Garvin after her. Night approaches, and the doctor and Joe are lost. Prosecution and the production team are putting the final touches to the live broadcast. Horner is keen to ensure that Hawthorne is not around. Yates and Benton are meanwhile distracted on the deck by the rugby highlights. The doctor and Joe enter the pub to ask for directions to the Devil's Hump. Bert says to them there's no need to go up there, as the excavation is on television. He has set up a black and white TV set on the bar so the customers can watch. The doctor is questioned by the locals who think that he is in league with Hawthorne. Eventually, Joe manages to get directions from Winstanley and they move on. One of the customers in the pub, Kearton, finishes his drink and exits the pub soon after the doctor and Joe. Kearton has gone to the master and tells him of the doctor's arrival, but master tells him to prepare for a ceremony. The master puts on a red robe and goes into the cavern with other robed minions. Minions? The live broadcast begins as the doctor and Joe approach Embassy. The master begins a ceremony summoning, quote, the Dark One, end quote. A tree falls on the road, stopping the doctor and Joe. Unable to move it, they leave Bessie and continue on foot. Warner begins the excavation. The robed minions begin to chant as the master casts a spell. Hornet gets deeper into the barrow. As the doctor runs towards the barrow, he shouts for the dick to stop. The master reaches the end of his spell. Horner pulls a stone. There is a roaring noise and the ground starts to tremble as icy wind and ash rushes from the barrow. People are forced to the ground by the power of the wind. The master laughs as the church begins to shake. The gargoyles come alive. Joe watches as the doctor and Horner fall to the ground as the excavation site caves in. End of part 1. Part 2, Episode 2. Yates and Benton have finished watching the rugby and turn over to see how the dig went. They see Joe weeping over the body of the doctor before the transmission breaks down. A hastily assembled caption slide reading Devil's End, temporary thought. BBC Free TV is displayed and a continuity announcer says all contact has been lost with Devil's End, but transmission will be resumed as soon as possible. In the meantime, here is some music. Yes, music. So Yates and Bender go to find out what happened and try to make contact with the brigadier. Joe and the TV crew at the dig try to unearth the doctor and Horner. The master talks to the devil, whom he calls Azal. He agrees to meet him later at the site of a stone in the cavern. He sends the hooded disciples away. Harry, one of the TV crew, says that the doctor has been frozen through and is dead. Joe is distraught and begs someone to find a doctor. Harry sends another of the crew to find one. Benton and Yates can get no information from the BBC and can't contact the brigadier, who went on somewhere else after the dinner. Continuity announcer says they still can't get through to the outside broadcast unit and the deck. Yates says he has a good mind to go down to the Devil's End himself and find out what's going on. Benton points out that the Brigadier would go spare, and they might get news at any minute. Yates says that might be the case and asks what's happening to Joe and the doctor. The doctor and Horner are both pronounced dead by Dr. Reeves. Joe is distraught, but Reeves says he is a solid block of ice. As Joe weeps, Reeves is astounded to hear applause and sends Bert for blankets and hot water bottles. And Reeves is confused when he thinks he hears two hearts. Joe asks Bert if she can use his phone. She rings Yates, asking him to come and help. He says he and Benton will come in the morning in a helicopter. Suddenly, the line goes dead, as the cable is cut by an unseen someone using wire cutters. The Devil's Hump is evacuated, leaving PC Groom to guard the site. Unbeknownst to him, red eyes glow behind him. The next day, Joe watches over the doctor as he rests. The master begins an incantation at the altar. The ground shakes at the Devil's Hump, and a huge figure emerges from the barrow. Groom turns around and sees the figure. Yates and Benton approach Devil's End by helicopter. As they approach, they see a line of huge hoofprints. The pair lands to investigate and estimate that the creature must have been 30 feet high. They head off in the helicopter to the village to find Joe and the doctor. Joe hears the helicopter approaching and rushes out to meet Yates and Benton. She says that something devilish is going on. Benton heads off to look at the tracks whilst Yates is reminded that the Brigadier is yet to have been told about the events. The Brigadier, however, has already found out about the disappearance of Yates, Benton, and this helicopter. He calls for a staff car to take him to Devil's End. While walking in the churchyard, Benton hears cries for help from within the church, where he finds Hawthorne, who was tied up and put in a chest by Garvin. As they go to leave, they see Garvin approach and head down into the cavern to elude him. As they hide, Garvin comes in and looks around before leaving again. Hawthorne tells Benton of her suspicions regarding Mr. Metcheter. She sees the altar and says that this is the scene of black magic cult. Garvin enters with a shotgun. Benton tries to disarm him and a long fight ensues. Benton ends up standing on a strangely carved stone and is attacked by a force which renders him unconscious. Hawthorne helps him up. Yates tries to wake the doctor. Garvin, Hawthorne, and Benton leave the church and discover huge gusts of wind and blindingly bright lights. Hawthorne and Benton escape whilst the creature bears down on Garvin. Garvin tries to shoot the creature and is killed in a fireball. The whole village shakes and succumbs to the bright light. The creature walks to the stone in the cavern. The doctor awakens with a shout of Eureka! The doctor welcomes Azal. A roaring noise forces the driver of a baker's van out of his vehicle 8 miles away from Devil's End. The van then bursts into flames. The doctor assures Joe and Yates that everything is all right. He says he knows what is causing the issues. Hawthorne enters with Benton, who is suffering from the effects of the fight. The master is told of the survival of Hawthorne and Benton by a source in the pub. Hawthorne blames the elementals, creatures of the devil. She also says that she saw the devil. When pressed, she says it was 30 feet high and horned. Doctor says she must have been mistaken, but Hawthorne is insistent. She says that an occult ceremony held by the new vicar by Mr. Messenger caused this event. The doctor notes to Joe that Magister is Latin for master. The baker's man stops the brigadier's staff car and tells him of the explosion of his van. As the brigadier and his driver are investigating, she asks the baker's man if the village they are heading for is Devil's End, using his swagger stick to indicate the way. As he does so, the end of the stick suddenly catches fire. The brigadier pulls the stick back and then brings it up again, whereupon it once more ignites. The brigadier says they will try and approach from a different direction, the south, leaving the baker's men at the scene. The doctor and Joe clear the tree away and drive up to the Devil's Hump. The brigadier approaches Devil's End and hears the roaring noise again. He stops the car and throws a branch ahead of him, where it bursts into flames. He contacts Yates to tell him about the heat barrier. Yates tells him all that has happened in the village, and the brigadier is very skeptical with regards to the protestations of the occult. Yates also tells the brigadier about the master's involvement. The master begins an incantation. There is a noise above, and the master goes to the window and looks. The doctor and Joe return to Devil's Hump and find Groom's lifeless corpse. They head into the excavation site. Unknown to them, one of the gargoyles from the church has come alive and is watching them. The doctor looks around the excavation site, and the gargoyle approaches. The doctor finds a metal model of a spaceship in the ground that is exact same dimensions as the dump that they are in. He begins to explain his theory. When a gargoyle enters, Joe screams as it advances on them. End of episode 2. Episode 3. The doctor brandishes something at the gargoyle and mutters some incomprehensible words. Clocaride, parta, menin, clutch. The gargoyle is repelled. So, the master senses the issue and regards the gargoyle on before bidding it to return. The doctor explains that the brandished the iron trowel and muttered the first line to a Venetian lullaby to trick the gargoyle into thinking he was doing magic. The gargoyle believes in magic, even if the doctor doesn't. The master has gone to Winstanley and urges him to call a meeting of the villagers. When he refuses, the master hypnotizes him into agreeing. The master says he has power which will conserve the world and says he can control the forces raised. He admits it to Winstanley that it was he who caused what happened at Devil's Hump. Winstanley rubbishes the master's claims and the master summons up a furious wind which rushes through the house as proof. Winstanley begs him to stop and then agrees. Hawthorne presents the doctor with books on occult, saying that she believes the situation to have been caused by supernatural and magic. The doctor thinks this is rubbish and says it's science. The doctor begins a briefing where he will lay out his plan when he is interrupted by the brigadier who is radioing for Yates. Brigadier informs them that the heat barrier is 10 miles around the village, with its center being the church. Doctor asks if they can go over it. As he says this is the RAF, having performed tests, report that the barrier goes a mile above the village too. The doctor hands up and begins his briefing. He shows the people assembled slides of Egyptian gods, Hindu demons, and the devil, and points out they are all similar in appearance. He says that these are all the same creatures which came from another world, but are far older and more dangerous than any other alien life form that the unit have ever dealt with. He says that they are called Dæmons, and they come from Deimos, 60,000 light years away on the other side of the galaxy. He explains that they first came to Earth 100,000 years ago. At the town hall, the villagers are assembled, and Stanley brings the meeting to order and introduces the master. The doctor explains that the ship and Dæmons diminish and expand in size. It explains the severe heat and cold that the village keeps experiencing. He goes on to say that the first time the Dæmons helped humans was when they helped the Homo sapiens kick out Neanderthal men, and that they returned to help the Greeks start their civilization and contributed to the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution. Hawthorne is confused as to why the Dæmons are dangerous if they have helped humankind for so long. Doctor explains that, whilst they are not evil, they are amoral, and that they see the Earth as a scientific experiment. As they have been called here by the Master, their experiment may fail, which could lead to the total annihilation of the Earth or domination by the Master. The Master exposes all the secrets he knows about the people at the meeting. Once he shows that he has this control over them, he says that if they do what he says, they can have whatever they want. The doctor explains that a demon has been summoned will appear 3 times. Third time they will learn their faith. He says that the demon must be in the cavern with the master, but at the moment it is so small it is practically invisible. While they talk, Bert busies himself nearby. The brigadier contacts Yates and tells him they intend to blast their way in. They should evacuate to the cellar. Doctor blocks this and says that the energy release will strengthen the heat barrier and will cause huge reprisals. He says he has a better idea. He asks if they have a condenser unit in the mobile HQ. They do, and the doctor advises them to build a geothermic energy exchanger. He tells them how to build it, but Sergeant Osgood, the unit's technical officer, doesn't know where to begin. The doctor says he will come to the edge of the heat barrier and explain it himself. Bert, having overheard all this, sneaks out. Jill complains about the brigadier and the doctor tells her that he is her superior. The master is still persuading the villagers when Bert comes in and whispers something to him. The master summons Girton from the crowd and whispers orders to him. Finished with Girton, the master tells the villagers they must submit to him and show obedience. When Stanley interrupts, objecting, but the master says he doesn't need them and says they are like dust beneath his feet, and they should obey or be destroyed. When Stanley says the villagers will hear no more of this, he begins to lead them out. The master summons the gargoyle, which kills Winstanley. The villagers coil back and, promising to do what the master says, leave. In the pub, Yates sees Girton getting into the helicopter. It runs out and tries to stop him, but Girton is too strong and knocks him out. As it flies off, Yates recovers and shoots at the helicopter, but to no avail. He takes off in pursuit on a motorbike. As the doctor and Joe make their way to the edge of the heat shield, they see the helicopter which tries to force them into driving into the heat barrier. They see Yates approach on a motorbike, who says he will drop Gurdon off, but the doctor tells him to keep back. The doctor drives Bessie directly towards the heat barrier, but just as the last moment turns off and skids to a halt. The helicopter crashes into the heat shield and explodes, but Joe is thrown from the car and knocked out. Yates helps Joe and takes her back to the village whilst the doctor heads off to meet the brigadier on the motorbike. The master and the gargoyle make their way into the cavern. Doctor stops just short of the heat barrier, where the brigadier is waiting for him. Disregarding the brigadier's madness at the loss of the helicopter, the doctor says they will need to harness the electricity from some nearby pylons to create 10,000 volts to kickstart the diathermic energy exchanger. He begins to explain to Osgood what to do. The master begins to summon Azal. Joe is feverish and mumbles about something going on in the cavern. Yates tries to calm her, and Dr. Reeves gives her an injection to which sends her to sleep. Azal arrives and towers hugely above the master. Tremors are felt throughout the village. The master begs Azal to stop before he destroys him. End of episode 3. Episode 4. After tremors have subsided, the doctor continues to explain to Osgood how to set the exchanger. Master implores Azal back. Joe awakes, says she must go to the cavern. She hears people outside her door, but finds a ladder at her window and climbs down. Yates wants to investigate the village, but Benton stops him. The doctor orders Sergeant Osgood to reverse the polarity on the exchanger. The brigadier tells Osgood to hurry and says he has absolute trust in the doctor. Azal asks the master why he was called. The master says he has knowledge and power to rule over the primitives due to the fact that he's superior to them, but it needs Azal's help. Azal says that there is another of the master's race on the planet and wishes to speak to him. The master blocks this, but Azal gets across and says that he is not the master's slave and notes that the master is not immortal. The master apologizes. Azal notes that the master's will is strong and his mind great, and he will consider an alliance with him. He says he will call once more, but warns the master that his race detests failure and implores him to remember Atlantis. He adds that he is the last of the Dæmons, and it is his responsibility to destroy any failure. The master still says he wishes Azal to return. Azal orders the master to leave, and the master runs, laughing at tremors rush through the village. Joe approaches the cavern as tremors take hold. The doctor sees the village shaking and rushes Osgood, saying he wants to leave. Osgood still doesn't understand what is being asked of him, so the doctor runs through it one last time. Yates pulls himself together after tremors and goes to look for Joe, finds her gone with the window open. He tells Benton and leaves to go after her. The master is given orders to Bert to deal with the doctor. He also tells him that the next time he summons Azal, he will need the power of the whole coven to control him. Bert leaves, and Yates, who has been outside, rushes to hide. As the man drives off, Yates enters church. Unbeknownst to him, Joe falls out of a hatch unconscious. The doctor finishes his explanation to Osgood and rushes off. Joe awakes and enters the church, going straight into the cavern. She is scared by a gargoyle, and a scream brings her to the attention of Yates, who berates her for leaving the pub. He warns her that the cavern is filled with booby traps, spells, elementals, and force fields. To prove his point, he throws a book onto the same carved stone that Benton inadvertently stood on earlier, and the book is torn to pieces. They head off to leave, but have to hide as a member of the coven enters, putting a dagger down on the altar. Bert takes pot shots at the doctor with a rifle. The doctor falls off his motorbike and runs into the woods. The master begins the ceremony. Benton tries to get in touch with the brigadier, but can't. Osgood tells the brigadier that the exchanger is blocking the radio signals, but Osgood explains it should do its job in a couple of minutes. As he says this, the machine explodes and Osgood says he will need at least another half an hour. Bert reports to the master that the doctor got away. The master says he will need to be welcomed back to the village. Bert smiles and departs. Benton and the brigadier take advantage of the exchanger not working to talk. They are worried about the whereabouts of the doctor. The brigadier tells Benton to let the doctor know that they are having issues with the exchanger when he returns. Benton goes to look out the window and sees the arrival of Morris dancers. And the doctor arrives during their display and the dancers integrate with him into their dance. Soon enough, they have captured him, and their leader, Bert, pulls out a gun. The doctor is tied to the maypole. Benton wants to go out and help, but as soon as he opens the door, he is attacked by a Morris dancer. They fight, and it looks like the dancer has the better of Benton when Hawthorne knocks him out using her crystal ball. Before Benton goes steaming out, Hawthorne gives him some advice on how they could go forward more effectively. And the doctor tries to turn the villagers against the master, but Bart tells the assembled villagers that he is a black witch and should be burned. The master begins his ceremony, and the eyes of the gargoyle light up. The villagers are preparing the pyre, but Hawthorne stops them just before they set it all alight. She tells the villagers that the doctor is a great wizard and offers salvation. The doctor plays along. Hawthorne implores the doctor to show a sign of great power and suggests he shatters the lamp in a nearby lamppost. The doctor orders the lamp to shatter, and it does. He then shouts, "No!" to a weathercock on the church steeple, and it spins around. Unbeknownst to the villagers, it is Benton shooting these things with a pellet gun. Bert doesn't believe it and again threatens the doctor with his gun. Benton cannot get a clear shot on the man. The doctor, in his last spell of wizardry, moves Bessie of her own volition. Bert refuses to turn around and get knocked over by the car. Benton comes out and disarms Bert whilst Hawthorne unties the doctor. The master intends to summon Azal with the sacrifice of a chicken, but Joe stops him. However, it is too late. Joe looks on as the demon grows large before her eyes. End of part 4. Episode 5. The brigadier observes the tremors and orders Osgood to hurry up. The villagers pick themselves up. Benton wants to go straight to the church to investigate, but the doctor blocks him. Bert says that this proves the doctor is afraid, but the doctor says everyone should be afraid. The master welcomes Azal. Joe runs, but the gargoyle stops her. Yates tries to shoot it, but the gargoyle blasts the gun out of his hand, disarming him. Yates is tied up, and Joe is dragged away. The doctor admits he is not a wizard. Bert begins to gloat, but the doctor has turned against him. He shows the villagers how he moved Bessie through his remote control and says that it is science, not magic, that is explaining the goings on in the village. He goes on to say that the master is using Time Lord and demon science. The man asks how the master could have called Azal without the use of magic, and the doctor explains that it is through the channeling of negative emotions to create a psychokinetic energy. But then is still itching to get to the church. But the doctor says they should wait for the energy exchanger. The master, demands power from Azal, who says he will listen to the master's demands. The master says that everyone in the universe is subservient to him, with the exception of Azal. Joe is brought in, wearing a white robe. The master says that he will offer Joe to him as a sacrifice. Yates manages to escape and reports to the doctor. The doctor radios the brigadier and orders the machine to come through now. The brigadier orders Osgood to operate the machine. As he does, the machine starts to smoke. The brigadier orders Osgood to keep trying. The doctor marshals the villagers to surround the church. One of the coven warns the master that the villagers are approaching and he orders the gargoyle to guard the door of the church. Seeing the gargoyle, the villagers run, or tries to approach the gargoyle, but is vaporized by a blast from Bok's claw. The exchanger is at maximum. The doctor tells the brigadier to use the booster. The brigadier orders Osgood to use it, but he is reluctant, so the doctor activates it himself. The master begins the sacrificial ceremony. Some of his coven begin to question his orders. The exchanger starts to work. It creates a tunnel in a heat barrier, which is still warm but passable. The unit vehicles begin to drive through. Yeah, Azal is in pain, affected by the energy um, exchanger. So the brigadier tells the doctor that everything is through the machine. The doctor says he needs it. The brigadier orders Osgood through. As soon as the machine makes it through, it explodes. The doctor hears the explosion and the brigadier confirms the news. The doctor says he's going to go in when the creature is weak. He dodges the gargoyle and runs in. He enters the cavern and is shocked to see the size of Azal. The master welcomes him. The unit vehicle arrive outside the church. The brigadier wants to go after the doctor, but Yates shows him the gargoyle and his ability. The brigadier orders one of his men to shoot it, but to no avail. The doctor tells the master that he knows he is going to die now he's in the cavern. The master tells Azal to kill the doctor. Azal refuses as he senses that the doctor is not of this planet. The master says he is a meddler and a fool. Azal disagrees and says he has just done a foolish thing by coming into the cavern. The doctor explains that he came in to talk, but will only do so if Azal frees Joe. He does so. The doctor warns Azal that he should leave while he still can, telling him of the energy exchanger. Azal says he knows that it is destroyed. The doctor says he has too, but Azal knows this is a lie. The master says Azal should kill him for lying. Azal agrees. The doctor says that it is Azal, that if Azal kills him, he'll wander through eternity wishing he'd listened. The whole of the unit force fire at the gargoyle. One soldier tries to sneak into the church, but is vaporized by Bok. Yates orders Benton to fetch the bazooka. Azal hesitates. The master tells him to kill the doctor. Azal says that he does not obey the master's orders and goes on to say that it is time for completion of the Dæmons experiment on Earth. The master says that the experiment will be completed when he hands power to him. The doctor says that his level of power is similar to Adolf Hitler or Genghis Khan. Azal is not convinced. Doctor says that he should leave humanity alone. Azal is reluctant to do so as he says that the Dæmons imbued knowledge to men. The Doctor rebukes this and says that man has used that knowledge to create weapons, poisons, and pollution. Azal says that if humanity is such a failure, then they should be destroyed. The Master says all Earth needs is a strong leader to force them to learn. Azal agrees and says he intends to hand his power over to the Doctor. The Doctor says he doesn't want it. The gargoyle runs toward the unit forces. Yates uses the bazooka on him, which destroys him, but he soon reforms. The Doctor begs Azal to leave, but he says he can't. He must either bequeath his power or destroy the Earth. The Master says he can bequeath it to him, and Azal agrees. The Master asks, what will happen to the Doctor? Azal says he is not rational and should be eliminated. He fires bolts of energy at the Doctor. Jo stands in the way and says that the Doctor is a good man and that she would rather die than him. This affects Azal, and the bolts fire back off Jo into him. Azal is in pain and says that the actions Jo has carried out do not relate. He stumbles backwards. Outside the church, the gargoyle stops and turns into stone. The Doctor and Jo emerge from the church and tell the unit soldiers to run. The Master emerges with his coven just as the church explodes. The villagers all come out and watch. Benton captures the Master and holds a gun to his head. The Brigadier asks the Doctor what happened, and he explains that Jo saved everyone. Azal didn't understand the irrational and illogical act of Jo trying to save the Doctor, and all his power turned against himself. They hear a distant explosion. Doctor says it was the spaceship at Devil's Hump triggering its automatic self-destruct. This is confirmed when a soldier stationed at the barrow says it has exploded. The Master uses his distraction to throw his cloak over Benton and try to escape in Bessie. The Doctor tells unit not to fire and uses the remote control to return a resigned Master back to them. The Brigadier orders that the Master is to be kept under maximum security guard. The Doctor tells them to look after him, as he wants to deal with him later. As the Master is driven away in a unit Land Rover, the villagers boo to him. As everyone celebrates, they all begin to dance around the maypole, except the Brigadier and Yates, who decide to go to the pub for a pint. And that, my friends and companions, is the end of this 5-episode story, The Dæmons. Name some cast members. Doctor Who is played by John Pertwee. Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart is played by Nicholas Courtney. The Master is played by Roger Delgado. Joe Grant is played by Katie Manning. Captain Mike Yates is played by Richard Franklin. Sergeant Benton is played by John Levine. Miss Hawthorne is played by Damaris Heyman. Bert the Landlord is played by Don McKillop. Min Stanley is played by Rollo Gamble. Professor Horner is played by Robin Wentworth. Alistair Fergus is played by David Simeon. Harry is played by James Snell. Garvin is played by John Joyce. Dr. Reese is played by Eric Hillard. Tom Geerton is played by John Croft. PC Groom is played by Christopher Ray. Bakersman is played by Gerald Taylor. Bok is played by Stanley Mason. Sergeant Osgood is played by Alec Lindstedt. Torpy is played by John Owens. Azal is played by Stephen Thorne. Morse Dancers is the Headington Quarryman. And Jones is played by Matthew Corbett. And there are more actors, rich on very much actors and actresses in this story. So yeah, um, some world building. Individuals. The doctor says the master reminds him of either Adolf Hitler and or Genghis Khan. Species. Sergeant Benton compares the Dæmons to the Exons and the Cybermen. And yeah, Exos is can see that in TV story, the class of Exos. And Exons appeared as golden humanoids with white bodies covered in gold blotches. Their skin was metallic gold with curly hair and covered eyes. They could transform into ugly red-colored creatures with numeral tentacles and what looked like exposed lungs. They could lash out with their tentacles to either shock or disintegrate enemies. They could also instantly absorb victims. You see that in the class of Axos. Um, um, or transform them into exons covered in roots and tentacles. In the audio story Quantum of Axos, Sixth Doctor called these transformed creatures exonoids, while Axos referred to them as Exos units in audio story The Feast of Exos. And of course, the class of Exos, that is a third Doctor story with Joe Grant as a companion, also with unit soldiers. Language. Doctor states that Magister is the Latin word for master. And influences in this story is that the story came out about from Barulet's interest in black magic after reading Devil Rides Out. As such, when he needed an audition piece for the roles of Joe Grant and Mike Yates, he devised a scene in which they were confronted by the devil in a church. And another influence in the story is that Barry Letts and Robert Sloman were inspired by Chariots of the Gods, as well as a BBC-sponsored dig at Silbury Hill, a mount near Avebury, Wiltshire, with strong folkloric associations. Some story notes. The story had the working title The Demons. It was Christopher Barry who suggested the Dæmons, arguing that the Argic spelling lent additional atmosphere. Um, Another interesting thing is that the shot of the exploding helicopter is actually an unused shot from the James Bond film From Russia with Love from 1963. The shame shot was earlier used in the black and white The Enemy of the World, the second Doctor Patrick Troughton. Um, the sequence looked so convincing on screen that a popular myth persists that the helicopter was actually destroyed during the filming. Okay. Uh, this is also the only story to end an episode on a cliffhanger, namely episode 3, showing the Master in peril. Um, Also, another notable thing is that the episode 2 of the story marks the 300th uh, uh, 300th episode of Doctor Who. Uh, Also, this is one of the only 11 televised stories in the history of Doctor Who not to feature the TARDIS at all, along with Mission to the Unknown, Doctor Who and the Solarians, The Mind of Evil, The Sea Devils, The Saturn Experiment, Days of the Daleks, Midnight, The Lie of the Land, and The Woman Who Fell to Earth. And Ascension of the Cybermen is also the only season finale not to feature the TARDIS. Other thing is that John Pertwee named this as his favorite serial, while Nicholas Courtney named it his second favorite after Inferno. So, so important was this for this. Um, okay. So continuity, because the stories and episodes in Doctor Who universe in or universe are to some extent relate to each other, linked to each other, relate to each other, and for influence to each other. So part of a few things. The destruction of Atlantis is alluded to. The second Doctor had visited a submerged modern-day Atlantis in the company of Ben Jackson, Paul Wright, and Jamie McCrimmon. We can see in the TV story The Underwater Menace. While the third Doctor visited ancient Atlantis, where he witnessed its destruction by a chronovore. TV story The Time Monster. Second thing, Dr. Weary cites a few lines from a Venetian lullaby, which is heard in full following season during TV story The Curse of Peladon. A third thing is that the monster is captured by unit forces at the conclusion of this story and is next seen in prison in TV story The Sea Devils. Fourth thing is that when Stanley tells Joe, well, there's life, there's hope, right? And when defending a live doctor is being taught out in episode 2. These would turn out to be the third Doctor's last words to Sarah Jane Smith before his regeneration. A tear? Sarah Jane? No, don't cry. While there's life, there's hope. That's in TV story Planet of the Spiders. The investigative journalist James Stevens and his girlfriend Dodo Shiplet, one of First Doctor's former companions, watched the opening of the Devil's Hump live on television in the broadcast of the passing parade in prose Who Killed Kennedy. Another thing is that a liver Butlerian unit soldier named Francis Cleary was driving meth after seeing setting himself in Devil's End. We can hear that in we can there's a link to Prose Who Killed Kennedy. Another thing is that after being captured at Devil's End, the master was charged under the pseudonym Victor Manchester with having caused the attack on Black Thursday, a Silurian plague outbreak, and the failure of the World Peace Conference, among other incidents. Stevens notes that these terrorist activities were little remembered most British people in 1996. Is a link to Prose Who Killed Kennedy. Other things that the master retrieves his daughters, which is disguised as the stone of sacrifice, from the debris of the church in prose, the Eight Doctors. Another thing, a demon carcass is used by the fiction paradox as a spaceship in prose interference book 2. The last thing is that the planet Dæmons is mentioned in TV story The Satan Pits. And that, of course, is a story with the 10th Doctor and Rose. So, that, my friends and companions, is all I have to say about the story. So, a lot of things, and then we say bye bye. So, if you want to join me in a live stream, feel free to contact me via YouTube. You can put a comment on one of the videos, or you can meet me on Discord server, Random Entertainment channel, and tag Doctor Who on Discord if I'm very quick because I bump the server regularly. So, and you can also, it's also possible to invite me for your channel for a live stream or panel because I'm available. I want to talk with you about things you're interested in. So that's all. You are invited for a live stream, and feel free to invite me for your channel in a live stream. So cheers, man! Have lots of fun. This is your host, Enigmatic Joker. So for now, have a nice day. I'm looking forward to meet you. Bye bye.